Wrestling fans, are you ready? You better get those Magusta pops. It's time for all the Kayfabe.
Hey, I gotta go cut grass.
Okay, go.
Let me know when you're ready. Oh, go? Hi. Welcome to the World of Kayfabe podcast, guys, a pro wrestling podcast. Today, we have a very special guest for you. You may know him as Mr. Total Nonstop Attitude, the notorious KID, or just Kid Kash. Welcome our special guest, ECW original Kid Kash. All right. Man, I just want to take a really quick time before we just start recording thank you for giving your time to us.
Oh, absolutely. No worries, man.
And just some unknown little podcast that we just started a year ago.
Well, I see you guys all over YouTube, so you're doing all right.
That's right. We're trying, man. We're trying. We just hit 100 subscribers, and we're trying to hit it, you know?
Hey, you're doing good, man. Just keep going, man. That's all you got to do. Just keep moving forward.
Yes, sir.
So I figured we can start in about 5 minutes. Like we said, we'll just take about an hour of your time. Just kind of ask you some questions and just pick your mind.
Cool.
I was actually watching.
I still have a mind.
There you go.
I was actually watching a match of you against Just Incredible, and I'm like, dude, that match was absolutely insane.
Yeah, Justin and I did quite a few matches there in ECW. That's when I was going through my getting over phase through the company. You know, they just one night I had a match with Mike Awesome, and I'm from the South, so
right.
I sold for him, and it just blew everybody away. Back in those days, it was more or less Japanese style drop kick, pop back up, and arm drag. You know, and nobody really sold anything. What was interesting about that is after that match, Raven started having classes at the end at every event with with VHS tapes, watching like Mid-South and old UWF, John Tatum, you know, and those guys like that, myself and Ricky Morton, things like showing the young guys, Chris Chetty and those boys what's selling. And if you kind of see that afterwards, people did start selling more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have. We were just talking about it just about 30 minutes ago, man. I got Massacre on 34th Street in the background right here.
Oh, wow. I remember that one.
Yeah, I tell you, man, we're old school. We're new school fans, especially me and Joey here in the bottom that looks like he's in a studio right here.
Gotcha, yeah.
We're more of the older wrestling folks that have been watching you when you came into ECW.
Oh wow, good deal.
Nick up here is he's the young cat here. So
yeah, I'm the young blood over here.
He's a young blood. We shoot him some stuff to get some research. So
and it's actually funny story. So my introduction to you. And this is where my age is going to really show. So my mom got me SmackDown versus Raw 2007, I believe. And I remember seeing you as a Cruiserweight champion. And I'm like, dude, who the hell's Kid Kash? Like, so I played as him. I'm like, oh, this dude's awesome. This dude's doing flips and stuff. Bro, I'm blown away. And I'm like, I'm at school one day and I decided to like search you up, like Kid Kash. And I'm like, oh, well, he doesn't look like the guy in a video game. He's got long hair and a hat? What the hell? Like, you know what I mean?
ECW, yeah.
Since then, he got me sold.
Yeah, I started in 1990. It was when my very first match was in 90. I kind of started in 1989 with Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, just traveling in the car, you know.
Right.
I didn't even go to a training school. I never even got in the ring until the first night that I ever wrestled.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever imagine those two would still be wrestling nowadays?
Oh, Jesus. To be honest with you, yeah. It doesn't surprise me at all.
I think Ricky still does.
Yeah, especially Ricky.
Yeah.
I would have thought maybe Robert would have gotten out a few years ago, maybe. But Ricky, I can see him wrestling until he'll probably die in the ring.
All right.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind.
I think he wants to, honestly. No, I really do. We've had the discussion before.
Yeah.
Ricky's never done anything other than wrestle. He's never had any other type of job. I mean, he grew up with his dad. His dad was a referee at USWA, WWE. You know, he did a lot of refereeing in big companies. So Ricky was on the road with him quite a bit, you know, when he was younger. So he doesn't know anything else other than just wrestling. And I've often asked him, I'm like, what are you going to do when you can't do it anymore? He goes, when I can't do it anymore, I'm just going to keep trying to do it. So,
yeah, when you see Ricky Morton hitting Canadian destroyers, like,
yeah,
wow.
I saw that a couple of years ago. I think he did it to somebody on an indie show. I about came out of my chair. I couldn't believe that I saw that. That was insane.
Now, I got a question for you. Do you think so? When Petey Williams, I don't even know if Petey Williams was the first person to ever do it, but he was the first person to me that I knew did it. Do you think the Canadian Destroyer is such an overused move now?
I still to this day, and I think we were in a tag team match many years ago in TNA, but like the first go around when Petey first came in and all that, and we were in a tag team match and he wanted to do it and he wanted to do it on me, and I wouldn't do it. It just doesn't make. It's still to this day when I see it, it just doesn't make sense. You know. It's basically a sunset flip is what it is, you know? So if you're going to do that, I mean, you would have, for me, you know, just my common sense, you know, and looking at it you would have to have some sort of momentum to get a guy who's bent over, waiting on you to flip over him, to flip completely over onto his head, you know? So there would have to be some sort of momentum, you know, like coming off the ropes or something in some form of way, or maybe a little exchange, you know, with, you know, duck under, boom, you know, real quick, real tight. But it just, to me, it doesn't make sense on how it's done because the guy everybody's standing still.
Yeah.
And he's just basically leaping over you at a standstill position, which if you're in the ring, and you've done this for quite a while, you'll know that you can't just pull somebody over like that. You can pull them over into a sunset flip, but you can't take them over onto their head. So to me, it just didn't make sense. So I shot it down. I think he wound up doing it to my partner, you know, and I had no problem with that at all. Just I didn't like doing things that didn't make sense to me at all. And I mean, it's an impressive move. It really is, especially when you see a 70-year-old man doing it now. So, I mean, but yeah, I think Petey was the very first one that I ever saw do it. I'd never seen the move before until I saw Petey do it.
Yeah, I think, I
it's
agree.
An impressive move. It just doesn't, for me, and I'm not trying to convince anybody otherwise, you know, just for me, it just doesn't make sense on how it's done and how to get that, how he's getting that momentum from a standstill position, you know.
Yeah, well, see, when I was asking it, I used to love the move. I felt like it meant more back in the day. Now you see, you know, the Lucha Brothers, Young Bucks doing it 4 or 5 times in a match. So hold on, let me fix it.
It lost its kick.
Yeah, it's sort of like the DDT with Jake when he would do it. It made a big deal, but now everybody does a DDT.
Yeah. Well, it's like with my move, the Moneymaker, the pile driver. When I went to WWE, they wouldn't let me do it, so I wound up having to come up with another move. I did the brain buster.
Yeah, I just seen that.
But I just jumped up in the air with it, you know. So, but I've always used my pile driver, you know, the Moneymaker. So,
right.
But the only other person that I ever saw do it was Jay Briscoe, and he called it the J Jammer or something like
J
that.
Driver, the J Driver.
The J Driver, yeah. I did it for the first time, I think, in ECW. No, actually, it was on the independent scene before I even made it anywhere. Really, it was like 95, whenever. And I just watched somebody do a tiger driver. And I'm like, wouldn't that be cool if you just did a pile driver, instead of flipping them onto their back, why don't you just do a pile driver? So I kind of pulled those two moves, a pile driver and a tiger driver together, and just made that one move, But I've never seen anybody else other than Jay do it.
Yeah.
It's a good move too.
Yeah,
it really is.
Great.
It looks like it's well done.
Well, when you got somebody's arms cradled behind their back, it just doesn't leave any. It's totally you, and it puts it all on you because a guy can protect himself with a normal pile driver, but with that he can't. So it's all you. I did it to Sanjay Dutt, I think, off of the top rope in TNA.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Looking back at TNA now, like I think I've seen you in your first run and I've seen you in your second run. What was your more better run in the company?
Well, I mean, as far as, there was like a 10-year split between there, so I grew a lot more mentally and, psychologically, in the ring and stuff between that time, because I went to WWE and conformed to their way of how they're slower and wanted more to make sense and things like that. And they use their character a lot more. When I was there before, I was pushed harder, as far as titles go and position go. I was their top heel there for a few years, but I just didn't get over that hump because we just had a disagreement in where my future was in that company, and when I first went in, there was a lot of promises that were never met. And then some of the promises that were promised to me were getting to some of the other younger guys that they were using me to get over, when I first went into the company, one of my first angles was with AJ Styles. We worked each other for a straight year, and then we ended it, on a Falls Count Anywhere in the ring. We came off the balcony into a table and all that stuff, man. But like I said, the direction of where they wanted it to go, I mean, they put a cruiserweight title on, the next division title on me and stuff like that. But whenever I worked AJ was coming out of the X division, going on up into the heavyweight division against Jeff Jarrett. So they needed somebody to get him over that had a name. You know what I'm saying? And where they were going wrong with it for me, I think it would have got AJ over a whole lot more at that time. Not that he needs it now, but, they were, every night that I wrestled him, he beat me. And we would wrestle each other on a TV and he would beat me. And then we would go to a pay-per-view. He would beat me. So the whole point to me was like, why am I continuing to wrestle this man for a year? If you're just going to use me to be a pin bucket for the man, just say so. And we can end this angle a whole lot quicker than dragging it out for a whole year. Then that way you can put him with somebody else that's got a name, you can make it bigger, and stuff. And there was like, well, you're so over as a heel that you could lose every night and it wouldn't matter. And I understand that, but that's not where I wanted my career to go at that point. I was still coming off of ECW, being a superstar there. And then from there, I went to XWF with Jimmy Hart and Hogan. And we got even though we didn't get on TV, we got a ton of publicity, so WWE was even, negotiating with me at that time, but they were kind of dragging their feet a little bit, so I went on ahead and accepted the one with TNA, but there was also a problem on the other side. I had a contract with QVC when I went to XWF, and there was a no-compete clause. And that no-compete clause, that means if the company went under or never got off the ground, they had to continue paying me for my contract term or they could buy me out. So they never offered to buy me out. They just kept paying me. I was getting, paid a really nice contract for about 3 years.
Oh, nice.
And so I was also used, the company allowed me, Jimmy Hart, told me to go ahead and start doing whatever I wanted to do, so I did. And I was working with TNA for a certain amount of money a night at that time. And because we were just doing pay-per-views on Wednesdays.
I remember that.
So I was just getting paid for that one night every week, until they went to Orlando, and then we started doing tapings, through the week. And we do 2 days there and tape for 4 weeks, and then we launched another program with it too, I believe. So, they put me over more as, like I said, as champion and as a heel, gave me more TV time and stuff like that. When I came back the second time, they just basically wanted to use the name and get the brand new guys that they had just hired over and stuff. So, helped Jesse Sorensen. Jesse and I had some good matches and stuff, but I legitimately liked Jesse. Jesse was a good kid, and some of the other guys I didn't think too much of, but we just had good matches and had good chemistry and stuff anyway,
Now, 2 little questions just kind of fill in the blanks with the TNA stuff. For the World of Kayfabe viewers out there, how many times did you reign as X Division champ? Was it twice?
Twice yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and in both of your runs in TNA, you never wrestled in the 6 sides, right? It was only the standard four-sided ring, right?
Not the first time.
Okay.
Actually, yes, I was there. Yeah, I was still there the first time because we went from Nashville to Orlando.
That's right.
When we got to Orlando, that's when the 6-sided ring came out.
Now,
you were with Lance Hoyt or Dallas.
Yeah. I was still Mm-hmm.
Now, since you were over both administrations, who do you think ran TNA better, the Jarretts or Dixie Carter?
At the beginning, the Jarretts ran it better product-wise. They did the same old stuff that they used to do in Memphis with the money-wise. They tried to pay everybody, the very least and the very minimum that they could, But like I said, I was already getting paid a nice paycheck every week for 3 years. I mean, but business is still business. So I accepted a low ball on the first year. And in the contract, it stated that if they made merchandise in my likeness, then they had the opportunity to roll me over. This is where things went bad for us. Through that first year, they put me over, and then I saw what their intentions was and stuff like that. I was never going to get out of the X division. I was never going to really advance. If AJ was wrestling Jeff for the heavyweight title, then logically I should have been too, because I was the biggest heel there. But Jeff was trying to be the big heel there, so he didn't want to do that, because it would have outshined him heel-wise, Probably would have turned him babyface, But as far as then when Dixie ran it, that place just went.
Oh, man.
It just went. It went from a company to basically an indie show, anything goes, that's glorified on TV. It's got millionaire people running. You know what I'm saying?
See,
I mean, it was a lot of crazy shit was going on back there, man.
Yeah.
People like, just jumping from one to the next, and just crazy. A lot of jealousy, a lot of people arguing and fighting because of, just the promiscuous stuff that was going on in the
now, I actually have a question about the TNA thing. So during that time, your second run in TNA, this is when like the Dixie Carter era, how was the locker room back then compared to how it was the first time?
I think it was a little more strict, like the old school way, back when, whenever I got broke in and stuff like that. It was like that because there was more veterans at the first time. You had Ken Shamrock, you had Ron Killings, you had myself, you had Road Dogg, you had Jeff Jarrett, had Jerry Jarrett walking around there, every day too, So it was a little more, a tighter ship as far as the dressing room goes. And then the second time I went back, it was much, much more free, free speaking, free acting and stuff like that. But there was some guys that kept order there. Joe did, Samoa Joe, AJ, But they mostly sat in the back and played video games and stuff like that pretty much. Yeah. I mean, but, you know, they wouldn't, I mean, but they still wouldn't let people get stupid or anything like that, you know, like out of hand in the dressing room. So they policed it, you know, still pretty good. Nobody messed with Joe around there. It didn't look like to me anyway. Or Abyss. You know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at Abyss. I mean, the dude's freaking huge, man.
Yeah,
big
that
old
was
man, big man.
That was my dude in TNA. That was my dude.
Well, I'm the one that brought him out. You remember that?
Yes.
I'm the one that started it. The one that got Lance Hoyt over. The one that got Trinity over. The one that got AJ over.
Yeah. Hey,
think about all this.
I actually got a question. Do you still talk to any of your old TNA locker mates, like on a regular basis?
Yeah. Well, not on a regular basis. I mean, I'm in my 50s, retired, and you know. If you know anything about wrestling, you can be in a company and become the best of friends. You hit the road together, you travel together, you party together, everything. But once one person leaves that company, you know, you keep in touch for a period of time, and then you keep in touch for like once a month, and then you keep in touch once a year, and then eventually you just don't hear from anybody until you see them at a convention or something, you know, and then it's like, hey, let's have a beer. You know, that kind of thing. It's just a business. I mean, you know,
man,
I keep in touch with Van Dam. I keep in touch a whole lot more than anybody. And Lance, me and Lance talk periodically here and there and stuff. I still talk to some of the other guys, you know, but like I said, it's in this business, you know, it's everybody's, you know, got that goal of being a superstar and moving on, you know, so that's what we do. We just move on. And like me, I retired and came back into the construction world, and I'm a superintendent for a commercial construction company. And
nice.
Just, you know, I chill, and from time to time, every now and then, if somebody calls me, if they got the money that I'm looking for, and if I feel like doing it, then I'll go to a wrestling show and stuff like that, you know. Sometimes I'll wrestle, and sometimes I'll just do an appearance, and sometimes I'll do a seminar, just whatever, you know, whatever I feel like doing. And that's where I like it in life now. You know, I can do what I want. I don't need wrestling financially. I don't need wrestling. You know, I've had 30 straight years in the business, you know, so I'm not missing anything. I have no bucket list. I went to 62 different countries around the world. I went, you know, I lived in a couple of those countries, 5 of them, lived in about 5 different states in the United States. I mean, there's nothing that I really care that I feel I need to do now before I die. You know, it's like I did everything. I saw everything, and, you know, so I'm a pretty content dude, you know. So if somebody wants me to work, then I'll work. But they got to realize, for what you're paying, you're not going to get what you saw in ECW. You're not going to get what you saw in TNA. You might not even get what you saw in WWE. But what you are going to get is you're going to get a name and experience. So I'll leave it up to you if you want to book me or not. So,
hey, so that means you're not running off referees' backs, doing springboard plunges off of
I was waiting for that.
You know, I just had a hip replacement last year, so I got a knee replacement coming up. I got 2 rotor cuffs coming up, and I got to take a rod out of my leg that was been in my leg since 1997. So, yeah. So yeah, I'm not jumping off of anything.
There you go.
I was telling Nick and Joey, you know, once we started getting all this kind of arranged, I said, man, I was doing backyard wrestling back during the ECW on TNN days, and man, I remember sitting there doing springboard plunges off my trampoline onto the grass. I'm like, man, that's how Kid Cash does it.
In the head as well.
Dude, and I would always, like, before I did it, and it's not just because you're here, I promise, but I'd literally go.
That's my I had a fan that made me the best of Kid Cash, probably the best one I've ever seen. I've seen a lot on YouTube and stuff, but this kid sent it to me personally, and it's like 2 hours, and I mean, he found stuff from the independent scene. I was doing, you know, the Rana Bomb?
Yeah.
Where me and Easy Money were on ECW on the top rope. He goes to power bomb me, and then I cut a Rana in midair. I was doing that move back in 1992 in front of 10 people. You know, I mean, I was doing that move, and that's where I perfected it, because that's when I was trying to get it right. I mean, so I was getting hurt, you know, a couple of here, a couple of there before I hit TV. I mean, there was times I thought I broke my damn neck, you know, and couldn't even move it for weeks, you know, and stuff, and had to go to chiropractors and get in, you know, like injections and all kinds of stuff. But then I found out how to do it completely, you know, just right. And one of my rules was I would only do it with Easy Money. He was the only guy that I could do it to that was flawless, and it popped out every time. If I did it to anybody else, there was always like some sort of a small injury to a big injury, you know. So if you ever see me doing that move on video, it's always with Easy Money. I would turn anybody down who wanted to do it with me, and I'll be like, no, I don't want to jinx myself on this one, you know. That's one that can break your neck, you know, can kill you, you know.
Now this is probably going to be like, holy shit, like, how do you remember this? So you wrestled against Paul London on the 33rd weekly pay-per-view of NWA TNA for the X Division title.
Yes.
You won that match just by doing a moonsault off the ropes, but you slipped off and landed straight on the top of your head.
Yeah.
I was sure that match, you broke your neck.
If you look at when I saw it back, it's a wonder that I didn't. Yeah. I was very flexible, though. I mean, throughout my career, I always, because I've been working out in the gym since I was like 10 years old. I started martial arts at 10. I started boxing at 7, you know, so I've always been in the gym, you know, I've always worked out. I work out still to this day, even though I'm retired, you know, I eat right. I just had that lifestyle for a very, very long time. And stretching was always, it still was a very, very big part of it. And that's the only thing that I can think of that didn't, you know, that I can think of that kept me from breaking my neck on a bunch of different moves, because I would spend probably 30 to 45 minutes in the back stretching before I got dressed. And then I would get dressed, and then periodically through then in the match, I would be stretching the whole entire night up until my match. And then when I was done with my match, I would come back before I got undressed. I would probably stretch another 20 to 30 minutes. You know, I'm a big, big, big believer in doing yoga and things like that too. I've done yoga periodically over the years. I'll do it for a couple of years, and then I'll stop for a year, you know, but I always go back to it. It's just so good for your flexibility. It's good for your blood flow and things like that. So that's the only thing I could think of, because I should have broken my neck on that move. I mean, it was actually up under my chest.
Yeah.
I remember watching it. Yeah. Because actually that's one of the matches on the video that fan sent me, the best of, and this clips of just different moves all over the place. And that's in it, even though it was a fuck up move. I mean, he still put it on there. You know? Yeah, there's a bunch of, when I was in ECW, I had this thing about pulling out a brand new move on every pay-per-view that I wrestled. So if you go back through all the pay-per-views that I was on in ECW, you would see me bring out a brand new move. And then I would do it to the next pay-per-view. And then the next pay-per-view, I'd pull out another brand new move. Yeah. And then kept doing it. So I wound up with about 30 different damn moves. And I'm like, well, I can't do them all in one night. So I just started piecing them out. You know, in every match I would do 2 or 3 here, 2 there. You know, if I was losing as a heel or something, I'd do one great big move, and then I would miss one great big move, you know, and just kind of just psychologically pull it all together, you know.
And what I think was one of probably the biggest missed opportunities for you, in my opinion, that first ECW One Night Stand show, I wished they gave you a match on there. I love how you did that great run-in where was it Jim Molyneux that you ran off his back and flipped off the ropes into the crowd? I was kind of bummed that's all they gave you, because I'm like, man, let this man go out and have a 30-minute class.
Yeah, a banger.
Awesome.
Well,
we were fantasy booking in my head.
We were supposed to have a match, but the longer the day went, that's what it wound up being. I was actually supposed to wrestle Stevie Richards.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah. And we were going to replicate kind of like what we did on the first November to Remember pay-per-view. I wrestled the BWO. That's when they came out with the BWO. I wrestled Stevie Richards, and that's when the BWO was. That was the first night the BWO was launched. So we were going to kind of replicate that a little bit, because we had Nova there, we had Meanie there, we had Stevie there. So we were going to do a little something with that. And it started off as a 15-minute match. Then it dropped down to an 11-minute match. And then WWE guys showed up. There was no WWE guys up until about noon. And then when that happened, they just walked in the door and basically took over the show. And then by that time, I had a 5-minute match with Stevie. And then, like, just before the show started, they came to me and they was like, no match, just run in and do that move you did, on that one paper when you won the title. And I'm like, okay. That's when I originally did it. I originally did it the night that I won the TV title against Rhino. Yeah. Rhino, so they wanted me to replicate that move. And I was like, okay, well, no match. And he's like, no match, just run in and do the move. And I'm like, okay, great. That's what you want. That's what you get. Hopefully I can still do it. Didn't even give me time to practice.
It was insane.
Walk through it or nothing. I had to do it. I agreed to it in the back, and that was it.
That whole pay-per-view was absolutely amazing, in my opinion. I still have that DVD to this day in my living room, and I watch it periodically, like every once a year, because it's kind of like, hey, remember that? That was good stuff. Like the Mike Awesome versus Tanaka match in general. That match alone was hard-hitting. I love their feud back in the day in the ECW and all that stuff. And I remember you had a match with Mike Awesome.
I had many matches with Mike Awesome. Wow. Like I was saying before, that's how they started my push.
Right.
I had that one match with him, and they loved it so much, and they were so impressed that they put me with Mike for a solid year, man. I went through that damn table doing the Razor's Edge thing. I can't tell you how many times. I mean, man, I got powerbombed through the table, got powerbombed on my head. I mean, but he was good because after the first night that we worked, he understood. He was expecting me, like when we went to lock up, the first thing he did was kick me. Well, I sold that thing like I was going to the electric chair. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I was like selling the piss out of it. I got a 6'6" guy that's 320 damn pounds who kicks a guy that's 5'9" and 190 pounds.
Right.
What's really going to happen? So I'm from the South, and that logically that's what would happen. So he was actually expecting me to just turn around and drop kick him because that's what they did in Japan. And he had literally gotten off the plane from Japan that day.
Right.
They went to pick him up. He got there a little late, so they had to send somebody to go pick him up to the airport because he literally had just flown in. So that's what he was used to wrestling, that kind of style. And then whenever he did that, if you watch him, he kicks me, and as I sold the piss out of it, he went to hit me, but then he stopped. And then he was like, oh, okay, I'm back in the States. But he knew about the selling too, so he knew what I was doing, so he gave me time to sell it. And then through the match, I just sold everything. And he was like, man, he goes, I didn't even do half of my moves on you because you sold everything that I did to you so well that I didn't even need to. And I didn't have time because you were still selling the other shit, But that's how, when I was brought in, that's the way it was done. I mean, that was the code of wrestling. You work with each other, you get each other over. He got me over by being that kid that just would not give up. He beat on me and beat on me and beat on me, kind of like Spike Dudley.
But just about to say, just like Spike Dudley.
Just beat the shit out of me. And every now and then I would throw a high flying spot on him. He would either take it or he would catch me and do something with me, But that was the storyline with him and I. He just would beat the ever-living piss out of me, and I would just keep coming back, the old Ricky Morton from back in the day against the Four Horsemen, I mean, just they beat him into a mud hole, and he would just still have that, that hand in the air. I'm still here, motherfucker. Come get me. And that's where it all started. And then after that, they started putting me with Justin. Credible. They put me with Rhino, Rob Van Dam not quite a few times, but a few times. And we tore it down. Jerry Lynn. We started wrestling.
Have you ever met Jerry Lynn?
Oh yeah, there should be a lot of matches on video somewhere on YouTube of me and Jared. We tore it up. We tore it up.
When we were talking about Mike Awesome, like that's always one big man I've always been enamored with. Like just the mystique of him, it just radiates off the screen. Now, is there any moments behind the curtain that you had with him that were really cool, or was he just kind of to himself?
No, him and I were very close. We were a lot alike. I mean, honestly, the more we sat back in the back and talking, we listened to the exact same kind of music. We liked the exact same type of cars. We were kind of the manly men. We didn't do the video games and stuff like that. We were like, talking about working on our cars in the garage on our days off. Building our first hot rod. And stuff like that. And, he was actually driving a, what was it, a 1970 something Camaro at the time. And I still had a 69 Super Sport Chevelle at the time. And so we were telling stories, showing pictures to each other, and then our kids and stuff like that. And then we started riding together to all the shows. And a lot of times we would room together. Most of the time we wanted our own room, but if it was sold out or something like that, we'd share a room. But we always had went to the gym together. We just had a really good friendship going on there, until he wound up leaving the company, went to WCW. But we still kept in contact. And I went to WCW after ECW shut down. But I was only there for the negotiations went longer than what I was actually signed for. We talked and talked and talked for months. And then it all came down to trying to track Paul down to give me a physical release, a hard copy release. And even though the company went bankrupt, they still wouldn't, assign me until they had that in hand. And I'm like, well, he's working for the company. Why don't you just ask him? And he's like, well, we can't do that. You got to go through the chain. So I had to wind up calling Tommy Dreamer and tracking him down. And Tommy got a hold of him. And then I had to sign a release that he didn't owe me any money or anything like that, which he did. Paul paid me every ounce of money that I was guaranteed. So I had no complaints with anything. And I was like, if that's what you want, that's what you get. So I wound up signing that. He sent it back. I sent it to WWE. And then that same day at WCW, I got a contract and fax, signed it, showed up at Thunder, did a match with Easy Money, did another Thunder. And then I was supposed to be in Panama City the next week. And they called me by the time I got back home. Well, no, it was a day after I got home, and said, just set this one out. We got a lot going on. I can't tell you about it. And then so I was, okay. So I turned on the TV and watched it. And I was like, oh, I see what's up. They about 2 weeks later, they called me and they was like, here's the deal. We got too many people. We got two damn companies. So we're going to weed everybody out. We want to keep you. And we're going to keep quite a few of the light heavyweight guys. But here's the deal. The contract that you signed, which was a good one, it was nice. That's, what every wrestler looks for whenever they go to a company, Then they were going to renegotiate the contract down a lot to just $65,000 a year. Oh yeah, it was a big.
Yikes!
It was huge difference in what I signed for and what they were going to renegotiate. And the conditions that I had that were in the contract were going to be null and void. There was a deal to win the lightweight title 3 times inside of 3 years. Didn't matter when I won it or who I won it from, but just as long as there was a title reign inside those 3 years, that was gone. Then they wanted me to just uproot my life, my family, my house. I owned my own house and had a life like a grown man because I was in my 30s at that time, and they wanted me to move to Cincinnati, Ohio, and for Les Thatcher, I think, and worked there for Heartland Wrestling until they called me up. And I was like, okay, so when do you think that'll happen? And I got the responses, this business, it can happen in 6 weeks, 6 months, or 6 years. Who knows?
Sounds like the same deal that they tried to offer AJ Styles, trying to uproot him, but he turned him down too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're a grown man at that time, you got a family and stuff. You can't. I mean, I was living in Nashville, and from the contracts that I had before, I was able to live a pretty decent little lifestyle. I wasn't rich, but I mean, I was living pretty nicely. I had about a $300,000 home, and had a couple of cars, and had a family. I just can't.
Yeah.
Money is not always everything that it says,
No, I mean, and it was heartbreaking. I didn't want to say no to the people because I didn't have any troubles with proving myself to anybody.
Right.
I didn't really, if I would have took it, I really don't think I would have been there very long because I wasn't the second time when they put me down in Deep South when I finally did just sign with WWE, the first thing they wanted to do was put me in Deep South and calm me down and, slow down a little bit. This is how we do it. I was like, okay. And it was for less money than I was really wanting, of course, less conditions. And, but within about 3 weeks, I'm out of there. They backed me up, put the title on me, and had a little deal with Juventud Guerrero. And I showed up TV one night. John Laurinaitis is like, it was where you live, kid, Nashville? I was like, no. I was like, I did, but you had me move down to Thomaston, Georgia. And he goes, oh, you still there? I was like, yeah. And he goes, is that where you're going to live? And I was like, no, hopefully I'm going to go back to Nashville one day. And he was like, oh, well, you can go. Hell, we put the title on you. You can do whatever you want. I'm like, well, okay. I'm glad somebody finally let me know this, So I stayed an extra 3 weeks, and didn't need to, So I actually moved in one day. I still had my house up in Nashville, and I was like, nah, okay. Called my buddy up. I was like, hey, I'm renting a U-Haul, drive it down. He drove it down. I had like a little ass apartment there, just for however long I was going to be there, what I wanted to take, I took, and then the rest of my furniture and stuff I gave to, was it MVP? Yeah, I gave it to him. Yeah, he was he didn't have anything in his apartment. I think he had like a coffee table and a chair. That's it. I gave him a couch and love seat. And just say or take, so that way I wouldn't have to take it back. I just grabbed my immediate stuff and my clothes and the stuff that I wanted to take, and I went back home. I had a house waiting on me, Yeah, so I mean, they wanted me to do that. I just couldn't do that. So that's when I signed with Jimmy Hart and Hulk Hogan for the XWF.
Nice. Now, what do you stay up to date on the current product now, or you just kind of stay away from it?
I don't sit down and watch it because I go to bed like really early. I'm up at 2:30 in the morning, so I can go to I get up and go to the gym first, and then I go to work, and I'm on the job site by 5:30. So
wow.
I'm superintendent. My day starts about 2 hours before everybody else's. So
I feel that, man.
Because I was going to say in the lead up to this, when I was messaging you, I would get messages at like 6 a.m. I was like, man, is he an all-nighter? Like,
no, when you're getting messages from me, I'm in my office at work. I'm sitting there, and I just probably finished going through all my emails and stuff, and then I'm just responding to people. So
I'm like driving down the road, and I hear my phone go ding, and I'm like, holy shit, it's him.
yeah. Every morning 2:30, and even when I wrestled, I was still working construction. I would fly home on the last night of TV. I would fly straight home. I wouldn't wait till the next morning like everybody else. The companies were really cool with it. They respected it, so they would fly me back that night. I would get home probably about midnight, 1 o'clock. I'd run to the house. I'd go to bed. I'd be right back up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd go back then. I worked out in the evening. So I would go on to work and be back at work on Monday morning. Back then I was working for the union. So I was actually in the field. So I was like wrestling through the week with WWE and WCW and ECW and all these other companies. And then when I go home, I was tying rebar for concrete, and forming concrete and framing walls and building. I build high rises. I don't build houses. So, we build like 40, 50, 60-story buildings, so yeah. So we're carrying like number 5 to number 8 rebar, which is about this big around, and you're like carrying that shit. Got to stand there and tie that shit. I remember one project I was on, I was building a runway for B&A Airport in Nashville. That thing was 75 feet wide and 1 mile long. Yeah, took us a year to do it. So, yeah, so think about this. Even in the middle of summer, July, when it's burning ass hot outside, I just literally got off of a plane from being a WWE superstar, and I'm in the field tying rebar.
Hey, I just watched you on TV. Now you're building this building.
Hey, you had a match with Poopy. What happened with that?
Well, if you know anything about the wrestling business, the only thing you get in wrestling is a big fat paycheck.
Yeah.
If you're a signed wrestler with a big company, the only thing you're getting is a big fat paycheck. You get no insurance, no 401k, no retirement. So you got to do all that yourself, and you pay your own taxes. So you got to do all of that. You're an independent contractor. So I had to have some form of insurance, because if I got hurt outside of that ring, then nobody's going to pay for it but me. So like one thing I did like about WWE, they were more serious about it than the other companies. WCW was too. TNA, ECW, I got hurt and nobody paid those bills.
Yeah. There's been multiple wrestlers that's claimed that. Daphne, everybody, promises unfulfilled with health and.
Yeah, I took an arm drag from Paul London, as a matter of fact, and when I landed a little kooky, and I broke the fibula on my leg, that little small bone behind your tibia. It's just a balance bone. It's not anything major. They don't even put a cast on it. They just wrap it up real tight and line it up, and that's it. But yeah, I got that bill, and just give me all the information. So anytime the bill comes in, just send it to the office. So I did. I would just keep sending it to the office. And even after I left the company, that bill was never paid. They kept sending me the bill, and I just would keep sending it back down to the office. Then eventually they would send it back to me from TNA. They would actually send it back to my house. Yes. So I would just get it, and I would go down to the office, and then I would walk in, and then I would just shove it through the damn mail slot. And I would put on a big magic marker, "This is your bill, not mine." Yeah.
That's good stuff. And poor Daniel. Daniel's having technical issues over there with his camera.
No, it's like all of a sudden, the day we have you on, we do a Zoom call, and
at least we got started early. There you go. I see it now. Yeah.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We're gonna fix it. Okay.
Yeah, but as far as the new product and stuff, I every now and then I'll be watching. I'll be flipping through and stuff like that, and I'll catch that new company AEW. Mm-hmm. I don't think I can even get TNA around here. I don't think it comes on any network around here.
I think it's like Access TV.
Access TV.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And it's like if you have a membership on YouTube, it's like Impact, Ultimate Impact Insider or something.
Yeah.
Like that's how I got it. So
yeah. I actually did a match. I actually did a couple matches with them about 2 years ago. They called me down to Atlanta, and I did a couple of matches with them for a reunion kind of a thing. It was all right. They just wanted the old guys to come down and put over the young guys is all it was, So I got to meet a couple of the new guys, and see what it was like there now. Just completely wasn't impressed. It was, it's like the young guys are just different now. There's no respect at all.
No morale.
Well, there's just, they don't listen and don't want to listen to the veterans for giving them advice, or they'll ask you to watch their match. So you watch their match, and then when you come back and you tell them the good things they did, they're all happy. But then you start critiquing them with the little things that they did wrong. Then they get upset and they want to argue with you, and I'm just going to be like, look, God, You keep doing what you're doing. I guess I don't know anything. I guess times have changed so much that I'm out of my element. So, you did good. Good kid. Good job. That's all you wanted me to tell you anyway. I talked to my friend Jerry Lynn. He's an agent down in AEW.
Yeah.
He told me that that's exactly the way it is down there. These kids don't even hear it.
That's the same.
They'll tell you to your face. They're not even shy about it. They'll say, look, your time has passed. This is what we do now. So, appreciate it, but no need in it.
Yeah. CM Punk
disrespectful.
Yeah, CM Punk had the same complaint, saying that he'd give the advice and it would always be ignored. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, they've actually told Jerry to his face. They just didn't do it. They literally told him. And I was stunned. I was like, wow, really?
That's crazy.
Yeah. See,
to have the mind of Jerry Lynn.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Back in my day, back in my run, probably through the 90s and early 2000s and stuff. If you would have done that in a dressing room to an agent, holy shit, you would have been fired. Mm-hmm. WWE would have fired you, man.
Yeah.
But what you do is you learn how to use that information, but in your way. See, there was a lot of information that I got, from these agents and stuff like that whenever I was coming in. Didn't necessarily agree with it, and I would do it, but I would do it and kind of tweak it into my own little way. So that way that they were happy that I did what they asked me to do and what they suggested, but also I continued to get my character over in the way that I would do it, So, but they don't even try to do that now, from what I'm understanding. It's just blatantly no.
Now, you established earlier that you're old school. That's amazing. I love that. I love an old school heel in wrestling. One that pops up to me is, are you familiar with MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman,
yes,
in AEW?
Yes. Yeah.
Have you ever really sat down and listened to his promos?
Yeah, he's an old kid Cash.
Man, his promos will incite riots.
Oh yeah,
just like I did in TNA. I mean, I'm not saying that he got everything from me, but he may not have even watched me. I don't know, but the way he's acting, the way he's talking, his attitude, he don't give a shit about anything. That was my character in TNA.
Well, now, did you differentiate that on screen to off screen? Like, did you play the heel outside? Okay.
Brother, if you go back and just read the news about me, even the boys hated my ass because I'm telling you, I was, from the time I got out of the car in the parking lot, I was Kid Cash until I got back in the car. I was Kid Cash in the dressing room. I was Kid Cash all day long.
Dude,
you know what?
When I got back in the car, it all turned off. I went back to me.
If I came up to Kid Cash and he called me a piece of shit, I would have thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Your brother, I got so many. See, back whenever I was doing it, nobody was doing that. Okay, so it was kind of you would insult people a lot back then, and I would do a lot of stuff like meet and greets for TNA and stuff like that. And we'd have a lot of fans down there, and some kid would walk up and just be staring. And I was like, are you really going to just stand there? What are you, a little snot-nosed punk? Are you going to get a picture? Or are you just going to stand there and look like an idiot all day? And the dad would just be laughing his ass off. The kid looked like he's about ready to cry and stuff. And then the kid was like, well, I want that one. I'm like, you know what? You stood there so long, I ain't giving you a shit.
I love it.
Girl, you're getting on my last nerve, boy. Go wipe your ass.
Good God.
I mean, and that's the way I was. And I didn't turn it off until I went back till I got in the car, And that was just advice that I was given through the years. Tully Blanchard gave me like that kind of advice years ago. And he watched me be a heel one night in the ring on an indie show. And I had the crowd ready to fucking kill me. I was wrestling Michael Youngblood. He's from North Carolina. And I'm talking, I had the people ready to climb over the ring, ready to riot. Okay. And when I got in the back, he told me, he was like, that was absolute. And I'll tell you another thing, the Road Warriors were there. Okay. And Hulk, Road Warrior Hulk, walked up to me, tapped me on the shoulder, and he goes, brother, he goes, this is the first time I met you. And he says, but I got to tell you this, you are a credit to your profession. And then after he told me that, Tully walked up and he was talking to me, and he goes, I don't know who you looked up to when you were young. And I was like, you were that, that nobody liked. I couldn't stand you. And even if you did anything babyface, I still didn't like you.
Oh, man.
And he was like, he says, every heel, even in this day and time, there should be no gray area. Okay. You should not even want to be cheered by the crowd at all. Okay. Your cheers are their boos. That's your cheers. Mm-hmm. Okay. You're not going to sell as much in merchandise. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but you'll get it on the back end of your contract because you're drawing money doing exactly what you're doing. Keep doing it and leave no gray area. If the boys hate you, who gives a shit? It's not their career. It's not their money. It's not their spot. You do what you do best, and you're doing it now. So continue to do it. If you stop doing it, you're probably not going to go as far as what you could. And when he told me that, and then having Hulk, one of the Road Warriors, tell me I was a credit to my profession the first time I ever met these guys. And I had the only thing I'd ever said to them that day was hello. Because I didn't want to get on their nerves or anything. Like I didn't want to be a mark, So I just said hello, shook their hand, and I went to my corner, sat down, kept my mouth shut. And then they watched me work, and they were like, "Wow, this kid, where'd you learn?" I was like, "Ricky Morton." Oh, well, there you go, And then plus I watched you too. Okay, well, what was some of the best times you ever watched me? I was like, you and Magnum TA. When you and Magnum TA had your angle, I was sitting there every week, twice a day on Saturday and once on Sunday with my legs crossed, watching TV with my grandparents, while listening to my grandmother cuss you out on TV. She hated him, and then they made me hate him, and my grandfather, everybody hated him. So if somebody can draw you in that and make you believe it. I knew wrestling was fake. I could watch every now before it even came out. I knew it as a kid because how many times did I watch somebody miss a drop kick and the guy bumped? Yeah. It didn't take long. And then I was that guy that kid that was really checking shit out. I could watch guys punch and slap their chest. I saw that as a kid. So I kind of figured that it was fake anyway. But, then when it came out, but what Tully and a lot of the other heels that were names at the time showed me is that even though that everybody knows it's fake, you should go out there and be a stiff. And if you ever heard any stories about me, I was always a very stiff wrestler.
I've heard of that. I've heard a lot.
I chopped the living piss out of people. I forearmed them. I kicked them hard in the back. And I would beg them, please give it right back to me. Right. Because that's the way I was brought up. My very first match was Wahoo McDaniels.
Oh,
and he
wow.
beat the piss out of me. My second match was Greg the Hammer Valentine. He beat the piss out of me.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So my first 2 years in the business, I didn't hardly wrestle any indie guys. I wrestled a lot of names that had been, left the big time because I was with Ricky and Robert. So, these guys were old school. They didn't take no shit off no little young guy, and they didn't even want to wrestle me because I was a new kid. So, they not only wrestled the stiff way, but they were doing it deliberately on top of that, because they just didn't want to be there. So, I just got my ass handed to me for 2 straight years. So that's just the way I developed as a wrestler. When I went out there, I was just used to being stiff. So that's the way I learned. And people hate it. I would go into a dressing room, and I think I saw Paul London and Spanky do it one time. I was in the dressing room, and they came in and looked at the booking sheet that was hanging on the wall. And one of them had me that night, and they just looked at each other, and the dude put his fucking
But
I walked up to him because I love them both to death. I always did. I've always been so impressed with them. I've always really liked them as human beings and stuff like that. And we always got along. So I walked up to him and I was like, it's not that bad, is it, guys? And he's like, hey, listen, we have great matches. Not so many chops tonight, please. My chest hasn't healed up from last week. Look, it's still bruised. And I'm like, okay, I got you. You know, I get it. And that was usually what everybody's bitch was, like the chop, because I would lay that shit in, man. And I learned from some of the best. I mean, I learned from Wahoo McDaniels. I learned from, Ric Flair. I learned from
Ric Flair.
Dynamite Kid was one of my all-time favorites. So when he chopped you, brother, I mean, that's where Chris Benoit, come up watching him. Those guys were my favorites. I liked Flying Brian Pillman. I liked, Chris Benoit when he first came out as Pegasus Kid. I was watching videos of him before he even came to the States and became a star. I was watching stuff of him in Mexico and Japan. I was watching Dynamite Kid in Mexico and Japan. I was watching videos of those guys way more than I would watch, the WCW and the WWE TV.
Yeah.
Plus, I grew up where I lived at Virginia. I grew up on NWA. That's all I had. I had Mid-Atlantic Wrestling and the NWA. And every now and then, depending on the time of year, you could get Georgia Championship Wrestling. I wasn't even introduced to WWE until I saw it in a wrestling magazine for the first time. And it had Hulk Hogan on the cover, and I didn't know who he was. And I was like interested, so I was checking it out. Then I saw him on Rocky. He was in a Rocky movie because I was a big Rocky fanatic, back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, that's how I even heard about WWE. And then I think back in 1983, they had the first WrestleMania, I believe. And they were just advertising it everywhere. And I went over to some family members' house who ordered it. And that was the first time I ever watched a WWE show was WrestleMania, the very first one.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I grew up in that old school. If you watched NWA, it was completely different from the WWE. It was more meat and potato. They just beat the shit out of each other. There wasn't a lot of high flying in those matches, So when I got in, Ricky gave me the advice. He's like, you're a young kid. You're not that tall. You're not that big. So, if you can fly, then that's probably going to be your niche. But I would keep the old school tradition of selling and working a hold in that match. So that's exactly what I did. So if you watch my matches, I did arm drags, I did hip tosses, I did a chin lock, and we took a rest, and we let the crowd fucking calm down a little bit so we could get them back up. But then I would kick in that big high flying dives and the big hurricanranas, things like that, the moonsaults and stuff.
So I think we got about 10 minutes with you left.
Cool.
Maybe just want to ask one or two more questions really quick before we wrap this up. Let me find it. I just had it. Joey, is there anything you want to ask him really quick?
You were speaking about being stiff earlier. There's infamously the Bo Dupe frog splash to your jaw. Was there any issue with you guys after that?
Well, of course there was an issue. I mean, even though we were already friends, so there wasn't, the issues that could have happened if we weren't friends, But, I mean, that wasn't even supposed to happen. That's where the issue was, because they were just supposed to run in the ring and just kind of clear it up a little bit. Then, me and Nova and Danny Dorian and everybody would kind of come back on them a little bit, and that was it. They would powder out. Then it would set up into a 6-man tag at the pay-per-view, and that's what had happened down in Birmingham, Alabama that following weekend. So they wasn't supposed to do anything like that. And I was just kind of caught off guard, and I just got body slammed by Mike. And then here comes brother off the top ropes. Well, he was a very, very athletic big man. I mean, that guy was 300 pounds, but he was very athletic, and he had a lot of leap. So when he leaped so far, and I can get it because it's happened to me before as far as judging distance. Mike put me down a little bit past the middle of the ring. So he felt like he had to really get out there and do it. So when he did, he really did it, but he overshot me. a little bit, and his knees come crashing down. So when I seen it coming, normally you would turn your head in, but if I'd have done that, he probably would have broke my whole face. You know, he would have, yeah. So I turned my head to this side, and he kind of come down like this. Ooh. And both knees caught me like right in the face. It broke my jaw over here, and it broke it over here. And I knew it didn't hurt. I mean, it was a thump. I didn't realize something was wrong until I tried to talk. And my jaw just felt completely out of line, you know? So, yeah. So when we went to the back, I was livid. I was mad as shit because, you know, those are things that happen in the business where people get hurt, and it shouldn't have never happened because nobody talked about it. Nobody walked through it. It was just a run in, going to bing, 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 come back on you, powder you out. Then that was it. But they added that something that they didn't tell anybody about, you know? So that was the issue. But yeah, there was a little bit of argument. There was of course I wanted to hit him with the first thing that I could pick up and hit him with, but you know, level heads prevailed, and I just went on to the hospital. I went up to 4 of them that night, actually, because there was a flu epidemic going on. So I couldn't even get seen at the damn hospital. So I called a dental orthopedic surgeon in Marietta and left a message on his answer machine. He called me about 5 a.m, and I got up and I drove to Marietta, met him. He wired my jaw shut and everything. And only thing I had to give him was an 8x10 sign picture. And then I took a couple of pictures. Yeah. Took a couple of pictures with him in his office, and that was it. I mean, because he had worked on a lot of the WCW guys. And so he was a really cool dude and didn't charge me anything. I went back to the hotel, took a shower, pulled all the cotton out of my mouth, met up with Jerry Lynn. We went to Cornelia, Georgia, wrestled an indie show up there in a tag team match. And then I came back to Atlanta, spent the night, and then drove to Birmingham, Alabama the next morning and did a pay-per-view.
Man. I actually have a question before we wrap this up. You've been in the business for 30 years, over 30 years. Has there been an opponent that you would love to get in the ring with, like either past or present at that time?
At that time, probably Guerrero or Benoit, you know.
Ooh, that's a good choice.
Yeah, that would have been fire.
That would have been a banger of a match.
Because we were all good friends. I mean, I had met those guys doing a couple of Japanese shots, and then when I came back to the States, you know, of course, ECW, you know, they were there and stuff. So I got to know them a little bit here and there. And then I went to WWE. To my surprise, they both kind of took me under their wing a little bit. The night I won the Cruiserweight title from Juventud, that was a little bit of a shoot match because Juvi didn't want to lose the belt. And so it was a hard night. So just trying to call a match with him, and everybody was just like beat his ass. So that's what I did. I just went in there and started beating his ass, but I'm trying to keep it professional. I'm on a pay-per-view. I'm in the WWE. Haven't been there that long. I'm winning the belt tonight. So I don't want to get fired, you know. So me and him both are stiff. And if you watch the match, he dead weights me on a lot of shit.
Oh, yeah.
I had to physically power him up to do things. He chopped me in my belly, chopped me in my neck, you know, just doing really careless shit. But I'm throwing it back to him. And even on the dead level, I did drop him on his head deliberately.
I remember seeing it. I remember watching that match in particular. That was a hard match to watch.
Yeah, so when I went to the back, Chris stopped me, and because we had discussed this earlier in the day, he told me just to beat his ass. And I just won the belt, and everybody else was happy for me because they knew that I did beat his ass. But I didn't beat it good enough. Yeah, I mean, Guerrero, Eddie came up to me. He's like, man, yeah, that's the way to give it to that little motherfucker. Yeah, man, he want to do business. Yeah, man, fuck yeah, you did good. He said, good shit, man, good shit. That's how you do it. I looked down the hallway, and Chris is like, come here. So I walked down the hallway, and he was like, I'm very disappointed. I'm like, wow, what do you mean? And me? And he goes, yes. He goes, I told you to beat the fuck out of him. And I was like, I did. He goes, not good enough. And I was like, wow. okay. I was like, well, I'm going to wrestle him tomorrow on the SmackDown taping. You want me to do it more there? He goes, yes, and do it real. Do it real. And I was like, okay, I'll do it real. I thought I was doing it real out there. And he goes, not good enough. And I mean, that's the way he talked. He was not like this guy who had emotions and stuff like that. He was just a straight shooter talker.
He sounds like a fucking Terminator.
I mean, we were very cool with each other, but there were so many times that I was almost kind of like, is this guy going to hit me or something? Because he's looking at me just really strange, man. Yeah. I mean, we would be eating in restaurants and he would just be eating and he would just look at you. And I would just, like, something wrong, Chris? No. I'm like, okay. I go to eat my meal, and then I would order like a pastry or something. Don't bring him that. What are you doing? I'm like, I'm getting me a cake. No. I'm like, okay. And all the years I've known that man, I knew him, I never once saw him ever eat a piece of cake, a piece of chocolate, a bag of chips, anything, a Diet Coke, nothing. It was always water, unsweet tea, things like that. He always ate his meal, but he never went to the outside the catering and ate any of the pastries or any of the cakes or the ice cream or anything that was on the catering. Never, ever.
Yeah, I heard when he orders his breakfast, like if you take too long to order, he'll tell the waitress, get him what I'm eating. Yeah, he will. And I mean, he was just a straight shooter about everything he did in life. Sometimes it was uncomfortable. You just didn't know what he was thinking, but he was always good to me. He treated me very well, gave me great advice, and he didn't have to take me under his wing like that, but he did, which is crazy because he got started before me and I got started probably about 3 or 4 years after him, but he was already in Calgary and making the name for himself. So we were pretty close to the same age. I'm 53. So he was already, I think he would have been like 55 or 56 now or something like that.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. Miss that man. I don't care what anybody says about him. I don't care what anybody's opinion is. And I tell people, the people get mad at me, but I don't care. He never did anything harmful to me. He didn't do anything but good for me. And I didn't know that side of him at all. So, I mean, if that's what really truly happened, it's a bad thing. And it's sad, but that was their business. That was what happened in their family. And I, don't have a horse in that race at all. I just remember Chris as the good guy that he was to me because I never saw that kind of side of him, other than just beating the shit out of other wrestlers.
All right. Well, all right, guys. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Man, this has been an extreme honor that you graced us with an hour of your presence, man. We would maybe one day we can run it back and do a part 2. I would love it, man.
Anytime, buddy.
So on that note, I'm Dan the Man, Sick Nick Venom, Stagger Joey Lee Crocker, and the man, the notorious KID, Kid Cash. KID, baby. We're out.
Gentlemen, as you know, the Ultimate Warrior. Fuck it. It's publicly stated that, damn it, who put that up? Is that $200 an hour?
That's all.
Oh, me gusta.